Good day, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 3, The Science of Psychological Assessment, in which we will tackle about reliability. So at the end of this discussion, we will be able to discuss reliability and of the factors that affects the consistency of scores in tests. So let us first tackle the reliability in everyday conversation. In day-to-day conversation, reliability is synonymous to dependability and consistency. So think of someone who is reliable. What attributes does she or he have? When we think of someone reliable, we often refer to them with characteristics of being dependable and consistent. And we like people who are reliable. And we need reliability in tests. So we should not get a test that is not reliable. Jojowain mo ba yung taong hindi pare-parehas ang sinasabi? So again, we want a test that is reliable, a test that brings consistency in scores measured. So in the language of psychometrics, reliability refers to consistency in measurement. Again, consistency. In psychometric sense, it really refers to something that is consistent. Not necessarily consistent good or bad, but simply consistent. A test may be reliable in one context and unreliable in another. There are different types of degrees of reliability. To quantify the reliability of tests, we need a certain index, certain numerical representations of reliability. Therefore, reliability coefficient is an index of reliability, a proportion that indicates that the ratio between the true score of variances on a test and the total variance. Basically, reliability coefficient is gaano kataas ang reliability ng isang test. So, high test reliability is required for test validity. Its value may range from 0 to 1, provides an estimate amount of obtained score variance that is due to true variance rather than to error. The larger this coefficient, the more confident a researcher that the scores obtained at different times under similar conditions with the same participants will be alike. So let us now tackle the concept of reliability. In classical test theory, a score on an ability test is presumed to reflect not only the test taker's true score on the ability being measured, but also the error. So error refers to the component of the observed test score that does not have to do with the test taker's ability. For example, when we take a test such as PSS or the perceived stress scale rather, the score we get is not consistent or not 100% accurate. May error lagi. Not necessarily the test is unreliable, but there is only a variance. Merong pagkakaiba. Scores on tests are not necessarily the reflection of true scores. We have the equation x equals to t plus e to represent an observed score. So, the true score is added to the error score that will yield to the results or equals to the observed score or the x. So, our scores in tests is a combination of our true score and some error. A statistic useful in describing sources of test score variability is the variance or the standard deviation squared. True variance is the naturally occurring variability within or among research participants. So, variance from true differences yung totoong ikaw. In mathematical terms, true scores are also known as true variances. So, variance from irrelevant random sources is error variance. The relationship of variances can be expressed as The total variance in our observed distribution of tests equals the sum of the true variance plus the error variance. For example, vaccine. So vaccines are not 100% efficient because it has something to do with other factors. If there is 5% na nag-react na hindi maganda yung epekto ng vaccine sa kanila, if there is a chance na may 5% error, that does mean ba that the vaccine is ineffective or not effective? Not necessarily. It just means that 5% of the time, the vaccine does not work because there is an error. The person who took the vaccine may be may comorbidities. Nasa comorbidities, matanda na or may weak immune system. Pero 95% of the time, effective siya. Ilang beses nagiging effective ang vaccine? That is reliability. So the greater the proportion of the total variance attributed to true variance, the more the reliable is the test. Because true differences are assumed to be stable, they are presumed to yield consistent scores on repeated administrations of the same test as well as on equivalent forms of tests. Because error variance may increase or decrease a test score by varying amounts. Consistency of the test score and thus the reliability can be affected. In general, the term measurement error refers to collectively all of the factors associated with the process of measuring some variable other than the variable being measured. For example, in an algebra test that was conducted in English language, it was administered to grade 12 students of China that will come to United States. Excuse me. The students in the sample are all known to be whiz kids, matatalino in algebra. Yet for some reason, all of the students received failing grades on the test. So, although the test was designed to evaluate one variable, the knowledge of algebra, the scores on it may be affected or have been more reflective of another variable, which is the knowledge and proficiency in English language. So measurement errors that can be acceptable in some ways or errors na mahirap i-address because they are the random error and the systematic error. Random error is a source of error in measuring a targeted variable caused by unpredictable fluctuations and inconsistencies of other variables in the measurement process, sometimes referred to as the noise. This source of error fluctuates from one testing situation to another with no discernible pattern that would systematically raise or lower scores. Random errors can be a lightning strike or a spontaneous occupy the university rally or such as a sudden and unexpected surge in the test taker's blood sugar or blood pressure. So random errors ay mga errors na hindi mo inakalang magaganap na makakaapekto sa test result. For example, while taking the IQ test, biglang umulan. So si client wala siyang payong, kinabahan siya bigla kung paano siya makakauwi at nawalan siya ng focus. Dahil nawalan siya ng focus, hindi na siya nakaperform well sa IQ test at bumaba yung result niya. On the other hand, systematic error refers to a source of error in measuring a variable that is typically constant or proportionate to what is presumed to be the true variance of the variable being measured. In short, this is the error in the actual test. For example, a 12-inch ruler may be found to be in actuality is mas mahaba ng 1 millimeter than its actual length, that is 12 inches. So, all of the 12-inch measurements previously taken with that ruler were systematically off by a millimeter or by 1 millimeter. That is, anything measured to be exactly 12 inches with that ruler was in reality is 12 inches and 1 millimeter. In this example, it is the measuring instrument itself that has been found to be a source of systematic error. To reduce or address systematic errors in tests, a confidence interval is given. So, confidence interval refers to the accounting of some systematic errors that could happen in the test. So, for example, in an IQ test, ang lumitaw na test score mo is 105. You can go over the manual, maybe in the appendix, look for the confidence interval that could be 90% confidence interval. So, meaning that 90% of the time, yung score mo is nag-hover from 100 to 108. Yun yung confidence interval ng mga observed scores ng 105. It means that it is not necessarily na 105 ang score mo. Your score can go from 100 to 108. Usually, kasama na din ang random errors sa confidence interval. So, there are also errors na pwedeng maiwasan, and that will be discussed by the next reporter. So may these informations will be remembered. Just as we need a person for us to be reliable on, our test should be also reliable. It means being consistent. Thank you for listening, and padayon psikologista.